Thank you, everybody, for joining. I am pleased to be joined on stage by this distinguished panel. So I'll let them introduce themselves here in a second, but we are here to talk about all things data.
So I'm Emily Childers. I've been at Credit Karma about a year and a half. This is actually my first ever job in marketing.
Nice.
So that's exciting. Before that, I came from project management and operations. And then before that, I was a research analyst working with healthcare data. So I have a degree in statistics, and I'm well-versed in all things data.
I'm going to ask you some questions about statistics.
Oh, no, please don't.
Allie?
I'm Allie Donovan. I'm the Director of CRM and Retention at Box, and I've been there just coming up to a year. I'm a long-term emailer, so about 10 years in this business, and I can't get out, so I'm still here. And my background's really been retail for a very long time.
Great. Wes?
Yeah, my name is Wes Albaugh. I'm the manager of personalization at Hilton. I've been with Hilton for about 5 years, came up in the email team, and now manage omni-channel. So we're making sure we get the right message, the right customer at the right time, regardless of channels, across email, web, call center, mobile, wherever they are.
Perfect. And my name is Lalit Chopra. I head up business development at Movable Ink. So really figuring out how do we work with different data and content providers to get you the most out of your marketing technology stack. And for today, really the way we wanted to look at security is how do you get customers to trust you? We all have a lot of data on file that we can use to personalize our approach with customers. And so that's really kind of how we started talking about this kind of as we were discussing our topics today. So Emily, with Credit Karma, you guys get a lot of amazing and sensitive data.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. So how do you think about it? How do you get customers to trust you with that data? And what role does marketing play within it?
Yeah, so we have 80 million members who trust us with their financial data. That means we get insight into about $4 trillion, that's with a T, of household debt in the United States. We built a foundation of security. We treat our data with the same level of respect that banks do. We hold ourselves to the same standards. So the first thing is having a true foundation where you're actually secure. Next, I think there are two really important things that marketing can do. One is consistency. You want to be very clear and consistent in your messaging. If you're inconsistent, people lose trust very quickly. This is really basic behavioral psychology. And then the next is transparency. Just, being very clear about why you're saying what you are. We actually had a really interesting campaign for personal loans where we put your credit report debt into the email. That debt doesn't match what you think it's going to be, because what we get is a monthly report that comes in that issuers send to the bureau, and bureaus process and then send to us. So it can be your Chase card might report on the 15th of the month, and then your Wells Fargo card will report on the 22nd of the month, and then you don't see it until the 30th. Right. So you say, this debt number is wrong, I don't trust you, you're lying to me. Well, it's true for us, we're telling you the truth, and we need to tell you why. So actually removing that personalization built more trust. We had better engagement.
Sure. What do you feel like from an approach around utility, right? So I think when we're using personalized and sensitive data, I think one of the pieces that I think the industry is talking about right now is how do you make sure that message has utility for the customer, so that way you're not getting in to the creepy zone or creepy factor. I think Wes, you kind of brought that up a little bit too. How do you think about that, right? So there is kind of that credit scoring or debt element, but how do you think about the creepy factor?
Creepy factor is big. I mean, you got to tell people why. Why do you know this thing? Should you know this thing? So we fall into that in our digital marketing channels as well, where we were pretty creepy. So that's another, you step back, or you tell people why you know this thing about them. Hey, this card is great for you because you were looking at this other card. So that goes back to transparency. Like my favorite nerdy thing right now is behavioral psychology. And it really, if you start using those tips and tricks, it really makes a difference.
Allie, I think we talked a little bit too around how do you utilize some of the purchase activity that you have. I think you had a good example. I think maybe it was pointed at me, I'm not sure. Do you want to share that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of concerns obviously about security. One of the things that we struggle most with is we're kind of a new company. Not everyone knows us. And for those in the room that don't, we're basically a warehouse club with no membership fees and free delivery. So we'll basically make sure you never run out of toilet paper. So we give people the options of how much they want to trust us. So you don't have to create an account with us with a password. You could actually just sign up through Facebook or Google. So you don't have to give us kind of that secure password that you probably use for everything across everywhere in the internet. Or when you're checking out, if you don't want to give a company that you're not 100% sure of your credit card, you can pay with Venmo so that you don't have to go through that process. Type in the number, it's just one kind of click, sign in, and you're done. And the creep factor, thankfully, is a little less when we're talking about toothpaste and toilet paper. We have a model that basically tells us how often we think you'll need to buy things, your essentials, things that you've purchased before. And it starts off with just kind of a really basic model of how often people on average will buy toilet paper. But it kind of gets smarter. So if you're a family of 5, you use a lot more toilet paper than you do if you're a couple of 2. So it gets a little smarter. We also sell liquor, and obviously that's a very sensitive item. Not everybody wants you to know how much liquor that you may or may not be consuming.
Sure.
And I swear I didn't look up how much liquor you were looking at. I promise.
As you're personalizing that, again, going back to hopefully not, I'll try not to overuse this term. If anybody wants to play buzzword bingo, you can. But again, going back to that utility factor, right? How do you make sure that what information you're using somebody can utilize and is valuable to them, but then also making sure that it doesn't cross the bounds in terms of different types of purchases that people might not want to make. Wes, I know we kind of talked a little bit about kind of some of the attributes within Hilton. I did unlock my door earlier today to my hotel room directly from my app. I think that from a marketing perspective, we talked a little bit about kind of the security piece isn't as much of a factor, but as you get into those other pieces around how much you know about the customer, what do you think about when you think of those things?
Yeah, so I think it's just looking at the explicit data that people actually provide you, and making sure that if you're personalizing with that, you're probably a little bit more safe. You do start to kind of get near the creep factor if you start using kind of implied data or model data or something like that in a very overt way. So I think it's just kind of treading that line is what we do.
That's fair. And I think, as we look at kind of the brands that are on stage between Boxed, Hilton, Credit Karma, I think that there's kind of the Boxed and Credit Karma kind of grew up more in the digital age. We talked about Hilton kind of being a little bit more, kind of a 100-year-old brand. When you think about the different types of silos that you have and kind of where data lives because it's been built up for so long, how do you think about that within an organization like Hilton?
Yeah, so that's probably one of our biggest challenges as a team is data silos. So yeah, we are a 100-year-old company, so we definitely didn't grow up in the digital age. We were valeting your horse 100 years ago. So you can imagine just the what's kind of been duct taped together over the years. Trying to figure out this whole data thing in this new age for us. So we are, to reference the keynote this morning, we are working on a giant migration project to consolidate all of our data into, one system that's easy to use, and we can have a lot more say in how the data is formatted, how it's brought in, and how we can use it. But previous to that, I mean, we've kind of been working in this, this mess of a system, trying to figure out where different pieces of data live and how to get access to them. So we've kind of been, creative. We've kind of been the trailblazers also within our organization and just trying to actually be the ones that harness data to truly personalize one-to-one at a customer level. So we've kind of, uncovered a lot of the cobwebs, and trying to do that. And really, I mean, it's been just being creative with how we get to it.
Internally, who do you partner with? So as you're kind of breaking down some of those silos, I'm sure there's a ton of different data owners out there. Yep. What's kind of been the best approach there?
Yeah, so we like I said, we've been kind of the trailblazers in our organization, and so we really kind of had to find those people, like who actually are the people who are managing all this data. Once we kind of identify those IT partners that are actually managing the data, it was just kind of talking to them, getting friendly with them, figuring out, we really realized that like a lot of them, live in a silo themselves. IT lives in a silo where we were probably the first marketing people that they ever actually spoken to. So
Why are you here?
so they work in a silo and they build all of their data platforms in the way that they think it needs to be built. And then we found out that actually it's not actually very usable. So it was talking to them, figuring out how all the data was coming in, how we could get it out, and out of that this year, along with the data migration project that we're working on, we've actually spun up a customer platforms team within our CRM organization that has kind of become that liaison between the business, the marketers, and the IT professionals that are managing that data. So that's also really helped.
Yeah. Was there a common language that you found between, I guess, you and IT? Because again, you're saying, kind of from different worlds, right? Was it use case driven? What kind of was meaningful to say, like, this is, why I'm asking these questions. This is what I'm trying to get out of this.
Yeah, I think they do. I think they do respond really well to use cases. Once they figure out what you're trying to do, they can usually figure out a way to solve for that.
Allie, Emily, kind of within your organizations, again, more kind of digital first, do you still have challenges with data silos? What are you dealing with?
Yeah. Well, data silos and just basically our data in general is why we have a homegrown ESP. We wrote our own email system from the ground up. Anyone else in here use a homegrown system? Is it really just me? Oh my God.
Craziness.
Well, I'd love to show you the pain someday. But what that does is give you access to all of your data. But even then, we found that it can be really hard to integrate personalization in this homegrown tool without engineering support, and we all know how hard that can be to get. So we've really struggled with being able to see the data, know it's there, but we just can't put it into our templates.
Sure.
We kind of have the opposite problem. We have a huge data bucket. Everything that you do on our website, our app, goes into this one bucket. The problem is getting that bucket to talk to anything else.
Sure.
To get anything out of it, you need to be great at SQL and understand the 10,000 tables that live within it, which I'm not great at SQL, so basically I can't tell anything. So we have a couple of ways that we work around this. One is we think about structures in the ways of pods. So we have a pod of a marketer, a data scientist, a business insights person, and an engineer. And basically, we tackle every problem together. So one of the biggest problems that we really had was getting that bucket to talk to other systems. We had an ESP, we had a push provider, we had a direct mail house, a different platform that sent web pushes. We have a system for everything. So what we've been really working on is integrating everything into one single marketing platform. So I know there are lots of fancy terms for it, the evolution of the ESP, I don't know what to call it, CRM platform. But figuring out how to put that all into one kind of big tool so that everything is seamless. We can build journeys that are actually across the different channels rather than trying to hack it all together in our own back end.
Sure.
So, we started out with an RFP, and we were probably the worst company to work with because we had a list of 100 questions that we went out to companies and said what can you do out of this list? Surprisingly, most of them did answer all 100 questions. But really figuring out all those details of, what do I want out of the system? What does my engineer want out of the system? Data science, even finance wants certain payment terms. Everyone has these considerations that we need to kind of put into this kind of tool. So then we've really been working through the process of getting everything in. And the way we're thinking about this is really the integration will never finish. When we get to where we want to be, there'll be something new to add in. New events on the website, new pieces of data, new things that we're going to track or test. But this time it's going to be very different. So constant optimization. How does everything have a test? If you've got a triggered campaign, what could you be testing? And maybe it's a subject line, maybe it's content, maybe it's a whole new strategy. But just keep on having testing and making sure that we can feed all that data back into the database and then can use it for everything else. So it's a big project.
Yeah, I'm sure. From a kind of a speed, or reacting to customers, right? Reacting to what signals you're receiving from them. Kind of how does that look within this new environment? Is that one of the goals or one of the pieces that you're trying to achieve?
Definitely, real time is where we really want to get to. So you make a change on the website, you change your address, you put something in your cart. We want to tell you about that straight away. And whether that's hounding you through Facebook ads, showing you things you've abandoned or similar things that you abandoned. If we're using lookalike modeling, it really has to be quick and real time. We've done a lot of testing on abandoned cart, and we have these great theories about how long it takes people to complete their cart. And that would give us a great indication of like when we should be doing our abandoned cart emails. I think, the faster we can get, the better.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess with having a tech stack where kind of everything is kind of built in-house,
Yep.
How do you guys think about integration?
That goes straight back to security. So third-party integrations for us are really tricky because we have such sensitive data. And because we hold ourselves to such high standards, our third-party risk team is very thorough. So getting any sort of third-party tool integrated is an experience.
Yep.
It takes a long time. Things that you think are pretty straightforward, you start realizing in the world of security are not. There are a lot of risks out there. Even if you think, say, our CMS is nice and siloed, the fact that it's under the same URL structure means that it's not. You can still do spoofing. So we think about it as a risk, and we are just now starting to push things through as benefits, but it's a challenge, I'll say that.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing we talked a little bit about too is everybody today is talking about it's the age of the customer. It's of course the age of the customer, right? We've been hearing that I think for probably 10 or 15 years. But it goes back a little bit to data, and I think all of the approaches today are all around how do you build this personalization engine that focuses on migrating your platforms, kind of consolidating your data so that way you can react to customers. I think with Movable Ink, we're really all about the content side of the equation, which I think doesn't get as much focus today. How do you guys think about that in terms of how do you marry up content with data, utilizing kind of those pieces?
We use, obviously that's our team's kind of remit, is personalizing content. So we're constantly using data to personalize somebody's content. And we do that in a number of ways, from very explicit to very subtle. So if somebody went to our site and browsed a property and didn't book it, they abandoned, the next day you'll probably get an email with that property in it, image of the property, the name, a real-time rate, TripAdvisor rating, all of that driven by Movable Ink, of course. And so that's a very explicit example, and one that customers have come to kind of expect. They kind of know you're tracking them across your own website. So that's an instance, just using this data straight up, putting it right in front of them. And we might use that in a more subtle way. So it might just be changing the background image in an email. So I think it's just using what we know to kind of walk that line between explicit or subtle, and not kind of blurring it.
Yeah, that sounds like you need to solve the content side of it in order to be that personalized, right? You can't have thousands of different kind of permutations of a beach image, things like that.
Right.
The way I think about it is data itself is useless.
Yeah.
You can sit in a nice bucket and you can have the best data in the world, but until you start displaying it to the customer, whether it's changing your beach images, telling them what you think they would like to buy, it's useless. So thinking about, how do you then portray that information that you're gathering to the customer? Is it really subtly with, you 5 things left in your cart? Do you show them those things that are left in their cart? If they left things, do they even care? They probably know what's in their cart. Should you be showing them things that are like what's in their cart? These are a lot of the discussions that we have, and kind of the arguments that we have within our team that we want to test out. We want to figure out, what do we do with all this data? Because people's expectations have changed.
So we have to do a lot of this manually. And what we've found is, you keep track of all the things you're learning. We keep a nice messaging matrix of the messaging that's worked, any words that really stick. For us, it's deserve. You deserve a great credit card. Just a little bit of treat yourself. But then also, we've gone deeper with the data. So I partner really closely with data science, which is so much fun because they can create this intent model that says, all right, here are the people with the highest scores for we think they're going to get a credit card through this email. So they model, will they open, will they click, will they apply, will they get approved, all the way through the funnel. And I was like, this is great, it is working. It was like a 45% lift on revenue instead of my, very brute force targeting. And then I decided I wanted to know why. So I asked data science to export all of the top rated facts from the models. So the way a machine learning algorithm works is you feed it lots of data points, these little facts. Sometimes it's binary, it can be someone's credit score, it can be how much debt, it can be if they clicked on an offer recently. So thousands of facts get fed into this model, and I asked for the top 100. The top 10 all had to do with these people had shopped with us before. And that was just this light bulb moment of, oh, they love Credit Karma and they've shopped with us before. We provided a good experience. And now we've started to integrate that kind of messaging into the emails targeting these folks. And we're seeing even stronger engagement, and we know how to talk to them a little bit better.
Yeah, that's great. I think for us, as we're thinking about integrations too, it's integrations within your platforms, right, across your marketing technology stacks. We've got a ton of great partners here, and again, my remit is figuring out how do we, again, extract more data and content from those providers, things like propensity modeling, things like product recommendations, all of those different pieces, loyalty, et cetera. What's kind of the biggest trend for you guys from a data standpoint? What's the piece, if there are 1 or 2 or 3 things that you're focused on, that you are looking to utilize to then further personalize your messages? Intent modeling, all of these, again, different buzzwords that we hear out there. What's kind of a focus for you and kind of one of the trends that you're seeing pop up a little bit more now from a data standpoint?
It really is all about the data science modeling. So figuring out exactly what you're going to buy and when you're going to buy it. So we can really increase the relevancy of the emails, the website. If we can think about the segmentation that we want to get to, and there's a lot of different types of segmentation, and whether we're segmenting based on your social and demographic behavior, whether it's your financial behavior with us, and just trying to get deep down and test all of those models. Because data science is great at churning out models, but until you test them and figure out, some of them work, some of them less so. Don't tell them that. It's not the same as it was, and it's not going to be the same tomorrow that it is today. Our customers are ever changing, so our models have to change as well. We can't just create them and hope for the best. If you can have ones that constantly learn, then that's probably like the golden egg.
Credit Karma, we score about 8 billion different models a day. So we have, if you log in, we're going to score you on every single model, your approval odds for every product, your propensity, your intent, your transactor revolver score. So do we think you carry a balance on your credit card? So we do that 8 billion times a day. So we've gotten really good at this internally. What we've now started to do is allow our partners, so say, American Express or Capital One can come in to this model building environment that we built for them, and they can build their underwriting model using our completely de-identified secure data, and they can mimic their pre-approval models and then surface those pre-approved offers on our site. So we're expanding beyond our own team to add another layer of transparency where you can now be pre-approved. So we're letting our partners integrate with our data to provide our members with a much better experience.
That's great. Nice. So thank you everybody for your time, and thank you for the panelists. You guys
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.